We are. Oh, so we're on starting soon.
Yep, but you should hear your sound because I'm getting ready to transition to the live screen.
Okay.
Live screen is transitioned. I usually like to give like 30 seconds to a minute.
Mm,
We are live. We are live. And of all the 0 viewers that will view this right now, we are live.
yep.
All right. Cool beans. So we're marching forward. And we'll start it off like we usually do, saying hello. Welcome to the Not Your Typical IT Guys podcast. It's been a while. Um, in the words of Nickelback. Um, we are back. We are here to have a little bit of a fun show today. It's going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit less intriguing. Going to go over some of the hotter topics, some of the things that Chris and I have been talking about in the background. As so much has been happening behind the scenes for us. Um, things are changing. Things are moving forward very quickly. So just be aware, be prepared. All of the changes are happening. We've been a little infrequent in getting on here like we like to usually do, but we will be making a return to somewhat more stabilized podcasts. Hopefully here next month and into the months after that, especially into the winter months because that's when we're always inside. You know, nobody goes outside during the winter months unless it snows, and then everybody wants to be outside. But all that being said, welcome to the podcast. You know who we are. Donald's not able to make it in with us tonight. He should probably be back at the next one, but we'll keep track of that one. Uh, as usual, this is going to be a little different though. As you can see in the description and title, this is we're still alive. We haven't died. It's really the hot topic of the night. You know, we have not died. We have not passed away. Haven't gone anywhere. I was noticing something else that I was seeing too as we were talking about it too. A lot of the stuff we cover comes from some of the major channels and major outlets. Obviously, some video card stuff that we'll find and whatnot, and articles and whatnot. We do have some insight and some knowledge from the folks that we work with in the background too. But you know, we're not going to share you guys with the stuff that we can't because you know that's how NDAs work. But we can add some insightful thoughts to things. That's the way I like to look at it. So the first thing to kind of kick this one off is what you and I were looking at the other night earlier, Chris, and to go pull it back up myself. This one's a notebook check article, so I do need to go there so I can actually get it so I can show it off. But it well, let's start it this way. AI. AI is the topic that we're really going to focus on today. And AI in the sense of how it is dominating market share. Um, Everyone is talking about AI. Everyone cares oh so much about AI. And for lack of a better word, as I worded it to Chris earlier, AI is basically the modern day version of crypto. You know, so everybody is kind of out there doing their own thing. We want to talk about that and talk about AI in that sense, um, because it is kind of a big deal, especially to us at least. You know, I don't know about you, Chris. I don't know how much you guys deal into it and have delved into the AI space, but it is anytime you work with high end GPU compute, you end up in this AI conversation. Um, it really does affect the long term and the long term outcome of how things are and what things are done and who's doing what and when and why and why. You know what I mean? So I say all that to say this is that we'll start into this notebook check. Get to it. There it is. I started into this notebook check article, so I'm gonna change screens over here to the display and transition us so that you can see it that way. If you want to look and laugh, this thing is a pretty crazy card. You know, TSMC's been on the books as stating outright basically And here's the comical thing. So there's another article we'll get into here in a bit too, Chris, which will make some more sense of this. But did you see recently where
Uh,
Intel?
the the screen is showing up kind of darker. Is that on
It's
purpose?
it's because it's in HDR mode.
Okay.
Let me see if I can fix that though. You're gonna see the
Like it's
screen.
not.
You're gonna see the
It's
screen.
not.
Oh, well, you're gonna see the screen flicker because I'm gonna go back to SDR mode.
Okay. Batman.
I am Batman. That fix it for you? Look better now?
We'll see.
It brightened up a lot.
Stream is about 10 seconds lag. Hey, that's much better.
Yeah, SDR 30 bits. Yeah, I probably should remember that for the future. Make sure I'm using SDR 30 bit instead of HDR for the. Which that's the only, like I said, HDR is nice, but it really does. Like I've learned, HDR is great if you've got an excellent monitor or something like that. But on some of the edge lit ones, it's not as dark as bright as you'd want it to be, which is fine. Is what it is. So D Matrix is coming out with a card. It's a new company out there that's introducing things. And we started the conversation rolling down the lines of talking about TSMC and TSMC having the H100 issues, and it's not wafer supply. So the issues that we had during the pandemic that caused so much of the bottleneck are still the same issues that we have today, which is packaging. It's substrate. It's physically the material that the wafer sits on. The amount of silicon in the world, there's plenty of that. We're not running out of silicon, right? I mean, as long as there's sand on beaches, we're not running out of silicon, for lack of a
Right.
better word.
Right.
But there's a substrate material that's part of packaging. And so the way the technology works is basically how it's what you sandwich that chip onto to get all the connectors to everything to be able to move the electrons in and out of all of the transistors. So that technology is where the bottleneck is and always has been. And so we finally got the supply side solved on that. But because demand has outstripped supply for so long, the demand side of things has said, okay, so we now have plenty of supply of the materials for this, but now we don't have the capacity to manufacture. So now we're in the secondary issue to that problem, which is if you've got the material but you can't physically manipulate the material, then once again it's the packaging equipment. The TSMC said, in 18 months we'll be able to meet demand. Well, a lot of people are banking and betting and hoping that in 18 months we don't have the same issue that we have right now, because something will fall off in supply side and the demand side of things will fall off. But that's not going to happen because this is not the same as what it was before. So before, the issue that we were dealing with and delving into was, you had crypto that was pulling, and it was pulling GPU of everything, all GPU types. And this packaging technology that they're working on, it's needing the substrate and doing all of this. It's for putting memory modules and things like that. It's like basically for adding HBM to your actual chip design, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's where the substrate's an issue right now. That's where that manufacturing technology is an issue. I mentioned it, and I started to mention it too. Did you see where there was actually a company's prepaid Intel for a massive pre-supply order from the 18A node?
I did see that. That was very good to know. I wish I knew who paid Intel, but
Well, none of us actually know, but they've got some theories, and I've got some theories too behind it. And if I were a betting man, I'd probably put a paycheck's worth of a bet on to say that it's likely Apple. Apple always has to be on the front end node, the newest node that's out there. And one, Intel's working on this ARM partnership to be able to manufacture ARM chips on their with their IDM 2.0, setup. And Intel Foundry services. So I would imagine that the person that's probably putting the money out there, likely, is Apple. because Apple needs it right now. Apple's stuck. If TSMC says, "Hey, we're raising wafer prices by 20%," Apple just has to fork it out. They have no one else they can go to. They don't trust, because Samsung's nodes, while they are the same, this is what people tend to forget every time we talk about this. The node does not mean it is the same. A Samsung 5 nanometer node is not the same as a TSMC 5 nanometer node. Just like an Intel, like the old Intel 14 nanometer node was not the same as a TSMC 14 nanometer node. Intel's 14 nanometer was actually closer to TSMC 7 in terms of performance. And the 10 nanometer is definitely on par with the 7. And so that's why Intel was able to sidestep and stay on 14 nanometer for so long and not let it really affect overall product performance. Was they were able to actually just scale up on the node and use the node that they had working perfectly for as long as they could. It's still not good to not iterate more on the node, but it is what it is. But no, so we're going to talk about this D-Matrix card. So it's 9 times faster in generative AI than NVIDIA's H100. I am not gonna. I'll be the first person to say it. I'm not even going to try to lie about that. That is impressive.
Which the H100 itself was, I think it was typically 6 times faster than the A100, which
Mm-hmm.
the A100 was a beast. It was a straight up beast.
But
And this is
right,
but
I was going to say, but keep in mind, this is where things are going. This is an AI accelerator card. So this AI accelerator card, which functions essentially like a GPU, strips out 90% of the GPU function and just focuses on the raw performance, which is why the H100 and the A100 are nowhere near as powerful as. It's purely because of that.
Because the H100 still has to do the general purpose, HPC, whatever you would use I can't call it a graphics card because it doesn't have a graphics out.
But it does do other computational math.
Yes.
You could look at it that way. It does have some other computational functions for like simulation flow and things like that do require the graphical blocks that are there. Now it doesn't have an output like you said, but I kind of relate this in like the ARM versus x86 argument. So the H100 still is like an x86 chip.
Yes.
Whereas this Corsair C8 from D-Matrix is essentially an ARM chip that's very, very focused instruction set that it's going to handle.
Right.
But that being said, I mean, it's also got a massive amount of RAM. Like I said, it's got 256 gigs of LPDDR5 on board.
I really like that it's GDR5 and not HBM. I really, really like that.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, especially the way DDR5 is, if you leave enough channels available, so if you were to do, say, 16 channel and just leave a bunch of little DIMM slots on board for the RAM, if you were to do that, I mean, maybe not a lot, maybe you, because remember, DDR5 is dual DIMM per channel, or dual channel per DIMM, technically, too.
Yeah.
So if you were to leave the extra, if you put 8 DIMM slots on board and had 16 total channels there, you're theoretically able to meet and exceed the HBM bandwidth very easily with DDR5. And even if you don't have DIMM slots, even if you solder it on that way, if you solder DDR5 on that way, it's the same setup. You solder in the chiplets in the structure you want, and you get what you want. With 256 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, plus the additional 2 gigs of SRAM, which is basically the RAM that's physically on die.
Which is similar to the HBM on the Macs?
Kind of, no. So SRAM is cache.
Okay.
So it's got 2 gigs of cache RAM.
Like what Ryzen V cache?
Yes, but it's physically on die. They've left that because keep in mind, because they don't need the other GPU blocks, that leaves a lot of die space to put stuff. And one
Mm.
of the largest occupiers of die space these days, because it's hard to node shrink it, is your SRAM, your onboard physical cache memory. So it's like an L3 cache. Think of it like L3 cache, like that last level L3 cache. That's what SRAM really is.
Wait, the SRAM does 150 terabytes a second?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's because it's physically on die. And then with the way that the interconnects have, so they've got, if they've got two dies on board, they've got 8 terabytes between die to die. And then they've got multiple, then you got 1 terabyte of bandwidth, which is essentially what you can get DDR5 up to.
mm.
You got 1 terabyte of bandwidth back and forth to your, to in between your cards. So, I mean, depending on the workload, between 2400 and 2400 and 9600 T flops, whereas you're looking at like 100 T flops is what we're talking about with or 1,000 T flops is what we're talking about with the
H100.
H100. Yep. I mean, it's
Wonder
the
what it costs.
well, it's I'm sure it's not out there. This is the startup for them. This is so they'll be like you'll start to see more and more of these things showing up. People will make orders for them and they'll be custom ordered the way they have to slowly, a couple at a time. They will be
Uh,
expensive. But for 9 times the performance of an H100 right now, because they're such a small company, obviously
right.
if supply hits them and if it meets your workload, supply hits them, and you're paying $100,000 for one of these things when you're paying $50,000 for, or I think it was $50,000, 40,000. I think it's $40,000 for an H100.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you're paying 2.5 times the price probably for 9 times performance. Yes, you might have to wait 6 to 8 weeks to get it, or you know,
That's
three,
better than waiting 52 weeks.
or 3 months to get it. Yeah, you might have to wait 3 months to get it. It's also better than 18 months for like your wafer supply. Plus, then demand's got to catch up. I mean, so
Yeah.
you can think of it that way though. So you got that kind of option and opportunity. Um, and it is like I said, because it can fit all of that, because you've got all that memory on board, you can pretty much fit your entire AI model in RAM. Which you and I both know. Anytime you can eliminate that step from anytime you can eliminate the step from what do you call it, Chris? Anytime you can eliminate the step from
VRAM to RAM.
no, from drive to RAM, from like storage to memory.
Oh,
Anytime you can eliminate that step alone, you're automatically going to improve your output and your speed automatically. Now, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that's another big step that we got going on. Well, nothing things down. Oh well. But so like I said, that's the next phase to this that we kind of have to look at and think about. Um, it's just interesting to me because, like I said, it's somebody finally coming along, and this is truly what it is. It's competition arriving because supply has been outstripped by demand for stuff like this for so long. I mean, and I'll tell you the truth. I do not see something like this. I mean, it's not going to threaten Nvidia. It's just not. They're too big. They've got too many things going on. It's just like the whole Radeon GPU and Intel GPU versus Nvidia. Like in terms of as long as GPU compute is and GPUs for video games are a thing, Nvidia has been the specialist at it. And anytime you're the specialist at it, you're always going to outperform the person that makes it a secondary priority, which is what Intel and AMD both have done.
and CUDA is so prevalent. If you have to use a CUDA, you have to use NVIDIA. This is open source. This is not NVIDIA.
You're right,
So,
but I would also, but AI, a lot of AI models and stuff like that, and compute models for AI are already open source anyways. And you can thank Intel for that with their open VINI, VINO, whatever it is, toolkit.
mm,
I mean, Intel kind of pioneered saying we're going to make this stuff open source so that everybody can do it. and then we're just going to we're going to write the hardware specs. That's why they have the hardware specs the way they have them. We're going to write the hardware specs the way we want them. So guess what? We're going to have all the options, basically. Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, call it what you want to call it. What's funny to me, and I got to look at the other one real quick so I can see, because I thought it was pretty interesting. Oh yeah, that's the motherboard. That was something that I've been thinking about in the back of my head that's been funny to me. But I wanted to pull something else up that I was looking at earlier, so I'm gonna go allow. Whatever. Say hello to Tom's Hardware. Oh God, I should not have done that. That's just good. So AMD, I'll drop this in the chat for you. So you got access to it.
I saw that. What? Well, what do you think I'm talking about, or having a panic attack over?
16 channels of memory. I mean, aren't we all kind of having?
Almighty.
Aren't we all kind of having that panic attack right now, Chris? I mean, that's the ticket.
16.
It's crazy. Why? Why are we upping the why? Why can't we figure out how to do it with 8-channel? I mean, we can. People just are lazy.
It'd be such a big board.
Well, what it means. See this, but the problem is, so I'm gonna backtrack us here because I know from the conversation I've seen, there's probably the chance that Granite Rapids, not the one that follows up Sapphire, but the Granite Rapids.
The next one.
Yeah, the one after that. So 2 generations. So like your 66 series, I guess, or 86 series for thing. That series of processor from Xeon from Intel is likely going to be 12-channel. But I'm hoping not. I'm hoping they stick it down. I'm hoping they find a way to go, all right, well, we're just going to put DDR5 7200 as the spec on this one. And which is, go ahead and think about that number right now. That's basically triple the memory speed, or 1.5 times the memory speed of what we have right now. And so if DDR5 7200 is the standard for in 2 years for a Xeon workstation or Xeon processor, you only need 8-channel memory.
Right.
Needing 12-channel memory is obsessive. Needing that much, saying you need that much bandwidth means your memory controller sucks. Which, isn't that the conversation we've had about AMD for years?
Yeah.
Your memory controller sucks?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the conversation we've had for years. So if your memory controller sucks, your memory controller just sucks. There ain't nothing you can do about it. Fix it, basically. Yes, it's kind of sad and bad to think about it that way, but that's the truth.
I'm more excited about the MR and MCR.
Oh yeah,
concept.
Which, I mean, MR and MCR, what is that? It's Optane.
Yeah.
It's a version of Optane that's just done a little differently. But it's something that's not just Intel supported, which is what's crazy for that factor. I mean, you want that too. You want something that's not just Intel supported. You want the other options to be available to you. And I mean, to the point that they make, you've got the core count increase, you've got, all that great stuff. But I mean, that's what killed me. Innovative cooling solutions to dissipate over 1 kilowatt of power.
Liquid cooling.
Yes, but innovative cooling solutions to dissipate I mean, they're saying that CPU power alone is going to exceed a kilowatt.
That's an issue.
And just so you're aware, that's why we won't get to the point ever where we have a single socket motherboard that is. Or that's why single socket workstations are going to be the thing of the future, because what they'll say is, okay, the reason that you're usually constricted on your clock speed on a server is because you've got so many other inputs to deal with. So on like a dual socket board, if you got two CPUs and they're both 350 watts, you're already at 700 watts of power draw right there. If you're to the point where you're at a kilowatt of power draw already for 6 sockets, or for 4 sockets, I mean, the amount of power that you can run through that motherboard is going to start to be challenged, basically. So realistically, what you're really looking at here is that you're going to see what they'll say is, okay, we'll drop the turbo clock speeds and all that stuff down to where we limit the CPUs to 350 or to 300 watts per CPU, and then we'll go make these workstation CPUs that are 450 watts that really push the limit and say, all right, but it's only going to be single socket. Because once again, the conversation you and I have had is there's no one out there that can use 64 cores right now, much less 70, more than that, 96 like Genoa or 128 like Bergamo. I mean, that kind of stuff is designed for data dense infrastructure, right? It's designed for stuff that nobody needs. Nobody from a workstation perspective needs. Now, sure, there's servers out there. There's companies, Google and those folks can use them, but that's because they're dealing with so many different inquiries, and every inquiry takes usually a thread or two to manage and that kind of stuff. So they need compute dense clusters to work with. But yeah, outside of that made sense.
Yeah, I was looking at the core count of the core clocks on Macs a couple days ago when I was putting some new specs on the website, and the turbo clock on Macs is not that high.
No, and it doesn't need to be.
No.
Xeon Max and Xeon and a lot of the upper end scalable stuff in general is designed for memory intensive tasks more than anything. Intel makes a mistake. How shocking is that? It shows off a GPU that's not quite released. Yeah, that wasn't them showing. That was intentional, guys. If you don't think that Intel's not out here trying to remind customers that they've got better stuff coming down the line and to be patient for them, you are absolutely foolish. I mean, that is just the truth.
I was curious about this ceramic thing. I didn't have time to take a look at it.
The Cerebyte ceramic?
Yeah.
All right. There it is. It is reducing data storage. Oh, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Memory cartridges. Nano layer based storage. Okay. Wow.
Reducing the TCO by 75%. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
To 1 exabyte per tape. Ooh.
And it's got scaling technology. So, like, if you're at 100 nanometer process node, you're getting a gigabyte per cm squared. But if you're on 3 nanometers, you're getting a terabyte per cm squared. That's pretty impressive, dude.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, it's a unique storage technology, but I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we're to the point where you've got hard disks that are basically at, and I'm not going to use EOL. EOL is a bad term. Well, you got hard drives that are coming near to EOL because there's only so much you can, unless the form factor changes. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think the 3.5 drive that we currently operate is going to double in thickness in the next 10 years. That's personal Brad opinion. No, I have zero input to know that at all. That is just me sitting here going, hard drives have to change to be competitive.
So how would so then it would really just be like two of our current drives. Like it wouldn't be a drastic change.
I think it'll be, but for double the thickness, I think you'll get 4 times capacity.
Mm.
That's where I think it. I mean, the point that I'm getting at is, I think for double thickness, if you could get 100 GB on a hard drive cheaply, if it's double the thickness, which I think is possible because of the way platters are being built still, I think that's the key in the ticket to going to a larger storage medium for that. And I think people would adopt that in a heartbeat. And it just drops into two existing current slots in a hard drive chip. Because that's the thing. What you don't want to do is you don't want to change the width, because then it's not compatible with anything. If all you do is change the Z height, if the X height, if the X dimension and the Y dimension don't change and Z height only changes, then it's still compatible with every existing, storage cage we have out there. It's just twice as thick.
Mm-hmm.
But you're adding platters and density and being able to thin things out that way and make it better. Putting that kind of setup in a rack, and the power savings too, because you're not running 2 hard drives, you're running 1 hard drive for the price of 2, basically. So you should see power savings in the back end with all that too. I mean, it's little things like this that nobody's talking about. But I mean, that's the only way that's the only way hard drives survive the flash storage changeover. I mean, without that,
Is when I can buy a 2 TB a Gen 4 NVMe for like $120.
yep. And not
It's
even
time.
just, I was going to say, not even just a setup. There it is. That's the, because they've shown the picture of it. Here's the 5 chiplet design for, this is why it's probably going to be 12 channel though. You're wanting to know from a memory perspective, because the memory controller is on die.
Yeah, I saw that.
But going back to what I was just saying with that was, so you've got a realistic thought process coming out the conversation piece right now is, with storage mediums changing with flash storage. I mean, heck, you saw it looks like the launch price of the 4 terabyte 990 Pro is only going to be $350. That ain't, I mean, that's, and keep in mind the 990 Pro is a TLC drive, not a QLC drive. So I mean, there's no way on God's green earth people aren't going to jump for joy for that kind of thing. They'll swallow that up left and right.
We started selling a lot more 4 TB NVMe's.
And it's just like anything else. If the price continues to fall for them, and that's the thing. So to shrink the size and get more chiplets on what storage mediums, that's a question to look up. All right, let's do a little curious browsing here. So what does a 4 terabyte node? Let's see. I just want to know if there's like a way to find out what process node it's on. Because I'm wondering, and I'm also betting storage is not on the newest node. You know that. You don't manufacture storage. So TSMC having 3 nanometer or 4 nanometer out, you're not manufacturing storage on 3 or 4 nanometer. You're probably not. You're probably, if you're lucky, you're on 14 nanometer right now for your storage.
I was gonna say they're probably on 22.
I was getting ready to say the same thing. So when the when the storage node becomes cheap enough to shrink for that, that is the size shrink that you will see for the storage. So the actual physical size shrink, meaning that's how much more you'll be able to fit on it. It's why RAM is comically manufactured 9 times out of 10 on the. It's why RAM. It's another reason why RAM is so much more expensive than storage, because RAM is manufactured on the newest node, because that's how you get the most dense chiplet available to it. So there's a little bit of background for you on the combos.
Hey, look, there's the HPZ turbo drive. Haven't seen one of those in a hot minute.
Holy cow! The turbo drive. 4 terabyte. Let's see. I just want to see, like.
God. That makes me go back to the days of OCZ and the Revo Drive, and those were fun.
Oh man, some of the dude, it's like going back to like the old school. Old school hardware was always interesting. Let's see. Now I want to go. See what we got. We'll let Wikipedia try to tell us. There we go. This might tell me something. Oh, that's the other thing we got to talk about. I'll pull it up here in a second. I'm gonna bring it back to look at us for a second while I'm scrolling through this looking for it. But what's funny to me is, did you see this change that's coming down the pipeline? Which is Thunderbolt 5 or whatever they're going to call it. I've been reading up more and more about it and how the big changes are going to be out there, because it's got to be. I don't know if it'll launch with 13th or 14th gen, but it's got to be launching soon, dude. I mean, it's time to. I mean, we're a whole 2 PCI Express generations behind, right? Because Thunderbolt 4 is X4 PCI Express 3.0 lanes. That's why it's by 40. And keep in mind, when we say by 40, that's bidirectional by 40. So that's technically 80 gigabits of PCI Express movement. So you got 2 lanes reserved for out and 2 lanes reserved for in. Now, next gen, and that's where I'm going to pull this up here. Where's the thing that I was reading? Yep, here it is. Put it in the chat for you. We'll talk through it and then we'll pull it up and show it. But so it's gonna be, so basically you're still gonna have 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out on PCI Express 4.0. So that's going to give you 80 gigabits bidirectional, so 80 in, 80 out. However, it's going to have a switching mode for video for when you're using it as a video out, to where it gives you 3 lanes out and 1 lane in. So you still have 40 gigabit per second in, which means that basically all USB 4.0 things will be USB 4 current 4 will be compatible. Like you'll still get that 40 gigabit input transfer, but it also is going to give you all of the output for like display outputs. You know, you remember when NVIDIA used to have USB-C on their board?
On the graphics card? Yeah.
On the graphics card? I think that's going to come back. I think DisplayPort is going away. I really do. I think DisplayPort is a old and outdated technology that will be out by the end of the decade. I think
That would be a that'd be a big shift on the Quadro side. Sorry, NVIDIA Pro,
enterprise,
RTX
the
A, whatever.
enterprise side is what I'm calling it.
Enterprise.
But yes,
That'd be a big change.
it would be, but it'd be worth it. But I'm 99% positive by the end of the decade, DisplayPort will be done.
So
It's
what's
an
going to happen to HDMI?
HDMI is not going anywhere because TVs still use that, and HDMI technology is continuing to improve. And you're not going to just run. And HDMI is also a heck of a lot newer than DisplayPort. It's
Really?
all. Oh yes, DisplayPort's been dude. Hey. All right, let me see if I can find it. HDMI, and then I'll just do this. All right, so and then I need another one, so I can look up. I'm gonna get the actual. I'm gonna find these things out real quick so we know. So when it was DisplayPort originated in May 2006 when it was first designed. All right. I am a liar and a thief. HDMI was designed in 2002. DisplayPort was 2006. I am a shocker. However,
HDMI is 10 years old. It's a 20 years old.
HDMI is 20 years old. DisplayPort is 18. 16, 16, yeah, basically be 18 next year. So it's 19 pin.
Oh yeah, because we were on VGA and DVI for a long time.
Yeah, it's basically 20 pin versus 19 pin. So, but the point that I'm getting at with this, the reason I think DisplayPort will go away is because I think DisplayPort is much more easily replaced with Thunderbolt. So, like DisplayPort 2.0 is yes, you can do. Holy crap! Okay, so single DisplayPort 2.0 resolution, you can do 116K at 60 hertz at 10-bit color. You can do 2 8K at 120 hertz at 10-bit. You can do 3 10K at 60 hertz at 10-bit. Or you can do 3 4K at 90 hertz at 10-bit. It's all uncompressed. So uncompressed is the okay. Let me rephrase. 16K is with what's their DSC compression technology, DisplayPort compression technology. All right, and so, and here's where it says it. So, just Visa, the mounting people, they're the ones that own the specification for DisplayPort. And DisplayPort in for 2.1 is tightening the alignment with USB-C. Which to me, if you didn't know it, that should just tell you right there. DisplayPort is basically going to be pushing to DisplayPort, USB-C, and Thunderbolt are all going to push to have USB-C is going to be the motive because it's a more and when I say DisplayPort's going away, DisplayPort itself is not going away. The DisplayPort connector that you and I know and love is going away.
The port,
yeah, the port is going to it's going to move to USB-C. It just makes sense to simplify right now.
Yeah.
So that's and that's not a knock to DisplayPort. That's a positive note to USB-C from over the years. I mean, that's just the thing. USB-C has developed itself with Thunderbolt's help. Keep that in mind. That's with Thunderbolt's help. USB-C has gotten to the point where it is, and like I said, I'm trying to think of the monitor that I saw that had it on it the other day. I was looking at a Dell monitor. I'm going to transition to show this because I'm going to go pull up the Dell website. If you've never used Dell monitors, I highly recommend them. Between Dell and Samsung and LG, those are the ones that yes, they pretty much all use the same panel technology, but it's something about the form factors that Dell has. I mean, it's just it's weird. Like, I don't know, but so I'm gonna go look at have you seen the 6K 32-inch?
No.
Top all. All right. I just like to do this because it's just easier to go highest price. It's easier to get. It's easier to get down to what you want to get down to. So yes, it's expensive as all get out. That's right. I said that. Now let me go down here and look at this. Scroll down so I can zoom in. You notice here, there's a mini display port. Can you see that? There's one HDMI, one mini display port, and then 3 USB-Cs. Now, 2 of those USB-Cs are Thunderbolt, and one of them is an actual USB out in. Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's
a lot on it.
But the point that I'm making with that, though, is that's a cool little setup. They also have this sweet little thing I have to show you over here on the right side. You can't tell it, but like if you push the button, if you push that little cutout there, yeah, the USB ports pop out of it so you can use to plug into them. They become front-facing USB ports. It's kind of cool. They're large format monitors. All of them have that built in. It's a somewhat unique feature.
Oh, there's an Ethernet.
Oh yeah. I think it's only gigabit, but
that's fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's so okay. Let's talk about laptops for a second here. We're on the rabbit hole. You put me on this rabbit hole already, Chris. But
I didn't do anything.
Yes, you did. It's all your fault. It's a short rabbit hole. Everything is going to USB-C and away from everybody and their brothers going to thinness. I'm going to show it to you by going back to it once again. I'm going to use Dell. Does a great example of this. And I don't have a problem with it, but I think it's kind of crazy. All right, so that's what I want. All right, I'm not going to try to upgrade or do anything. I just want the photos. So this is the new 5680 that they just launched. It's got the 13900H, 45 watt mode. Nice little sleek machine. All right, this is the left side. Now you got an expansion slot there, obviously, but this is the left side. So you got an HDMI. They left you a full size HDMI and a headphone jack. Shockingly, right?
Yeah.
Now let's go look at the right side real quick.
What is that thing on the
front side of the left side? On the front side of the left side, it's an expansion. It's an expansion bay. It's a place. It's a place to put stuff. So this is the right side. That's an SD card reader slot there. That's a Kensington lock, and that's another USB-C. There are 3 USB-C ports and only 3 USB-C ports on this device. There isn't a USB-A in sight. This is a Apple design and a half. It requires you to use dongle after dongle with this bad boy, or have a docking station if you need a USB-A port. And a lot of laptop manufacturers, because they want to go so thin, they take away the other thing, Ethernet.
Ethernet. Yeah.
And most of the reason for that is why put another gigabit Ethernet port on a laptop, right? Why? You and I both know that's a crazy thing to do. But why would you put an Ethernet port on a laptop? a gigabit Ethernet port. I still, to this day, it on the inside, it makes me cringe a little bit to think that we can't get even a 2.5 gig port on a laptop to save a life, and Thunderbolt docks don't give you 2.5 gig. Like, you got to go buy a standalone USB, and 9 times out of 10 it's USB-C. Let's keep that in mind. But USB-C to 2.5 gig or to 5 gig Ethernet adapter if you want to use Ethernet with the device. How sad is that, my man? It's a wee bit sad to me. True, but sad.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're coming close to an hour, so I'm trying to wrap this at an hour, but we got about 9 minutes left. So what I was going to say is it's a little bit sad to see that, and it is. Like I said, for all the things I would prefer you to drop. If you're giving me 2, and these are, let me go back so I can make sure I have the specs right on this. Close out of that mode. Let me go see the 5680 as a whole. Let me go see the features so that I can double verify myself to say it, but I am almost positive. Now, it is crazy. It's 64 gigs of 6,000 mega transfer DDR5, which is nice. I have to go back and look to see if I can find it. Oh, they're on the top, aren't they? Yeah, those sons of guns are underneath it, aren't they? I bet that's where they have to have SODIMM slots somewhere on it. They're not on the bottom. I've looked at this thing, but even that just can you see that on the breakdown there? Here, I'll give it to you so you can open it up. Because that's probably easier for you to open it up and be able to zoom in on it. Take a look at that one and just scroll down to in the features section and go look at the little breakdown where they kind of pull it apart. Like, look at how small the motherboard is. This is one of those and I give them credit. Also, another cool thing they're doing once again, GPU is it's swappable.
Oh,
because
that's neat.
because it's the GPUs on these are all those cards. I can't think of the name right now. I used to know it because I used to see them all over eBay for older 5000 generation cards. But like they're actually swappable. You can actually swap the GPU on them. Kind of crazy. It's the first 15-inch chassis design, which it is a 16-inch screen, but 15-inch chassis design. Dell's done that on the 17s. Have always had it. But I scroll to find what are the USB-C ports. Are they all? Okay, so you have one USB-C port on the right, and then 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left. So, I don't, if I were a betting man, that right side's supposed to be more of a DisplayPort based. But what's funnier to me though is, so you got USB-C and Thunderbolt on the side. What is it? I saw you yawn and you made me yawn, dadgummit. Which, like I said, this is all Thunderbolt 4, which is kind of nice, but number 7 is the optional smart card reader. So it's a smart card reader. Which, when's the last time we saw a smart card?
Right.
I think I'm gonna have to go find a smart card just to mess with now. I do. There's the one sad thing that I will say is, it's nice, but it's also sad. So they put the speakers back on the top, but they took away your full keyboard there, where you had the one on the right, where you had the number keys on the right.
Oh, That's sad.
It's a little sad. It's not that big of a deal. It's a little sad though. But I mean, dude, I mean, these are pretty awesome little machines. I mean, I'll scroll back up here and show you what I mean when I say that is when I go like for example, when you go look at your graphics options, you can put a 8 to 5,000 16 gig card in here.
Yeah, this is also a reason why we love the laptop space.
Yeah, there's not the customization on laptops is so terrible. Um, but yeah, it's a cool little laptop. I mean, it's got a USB-C adapter for 165 watts. So I mean, you're not once again, you're not getting an 8 to 5,000 that's in full power mode unless you've got extra power going to it. But I mean, it works. I mean, it's a cool
Or
little.
or memory on it, but that's a whole different conversation that we've already had.
Yeah, you can't get as much memory there. It is what it is. It's laptops. Like I said,
Yeah,
it's a cool little it's a concept that a lot of people will use. Let's call it what it is. They will use.
yeah.
And they'll use it sheerly because it makes sense to them. Now going back to the Thunderbolt conversation. So yes, Thunderbolt now gets 80 gigs, and I'm scrolling down just to pull up this one here because it's the image that I want you to see. So now, like I said, there'll be the ability to transmit 120 gigs, basically use 3 lanes out as display out, meaning you should be able to drive things like a singular 4K 240 hertz monitor or like an 8K 120 hertz monitor, or potentially like 2 8K 120 hertz or 3 8K 120 hertz this way because you get the 40 gigabits you need per monitor. It's pretty cool. The technology is pretty cool. I'm surprised it's taken us as long as it's taken us to get from Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt, whatever this is going to be called. I'm assuming 5. But that's kind of speaking out loud grossly a little bit about it. But I'm a little bit surprised it takes that long to get there. It just is it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time before we all get there. We all get the things we want and stuff. I'm also kind of surprised we don't move to 8 lanes on Thunderbolt as we get more and more lanes on consumer CPUs. That's the one thing I wish we were going to get with 14th gen that we're probably not. I wish they would up it from, 20 lanes of PCI Express 5.0 or 24 lanes. I wish they'd up it to 32 lanes. Give me a full 216 gig lane setups on the actual off the CPU. Like or at least do it on like the i9, Okay, so the i7 doesn't get all the PCI Express lanes, but the i9 now all of a sudden its selling factor is you're going to get double the, or 1.5 times the PCI Express lanes just because you're paying for an i9. And if you're paying for an i9 or an R9 CPU, you ought to be having those kind of things available to you. That kind of I/O is the kind of support that you'd want for them. The chipset would be the same. You wouldn't have to change the chipset. It would just be certain things and it would just be that and you wouldn't you'd make it such that lanes dedicated to NB to M.2 don't change. The only thing that changes is on the motherboard is that while they're wired for X16 across 3 PCI Express slots, you only get X8, X8 right now if you got 2 GPUs in there. So now the change is, okay, now you're going to get X16, X8, X8. So you're basically going to say, hey, we're going to give you, we're the only change is going to be on the physical lanes dedicated to PCI Express slots for additional I/O cards.
Right.
More storage options, for lack of a better word, more everything that you could potentially want to have or need to have, that kind of setup. Just be nice. We've made it to an hour. I said we're trying to cut it short today, and I don't want to run 2 hours, obviously, because it's getting late, and some of us need to all get ready for bed. I got a long fun week. I'll have to tell you about it later, but I'm going to Indiana this week.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Found out I was going on Saturday.
Oh boy.
That's how work goes sometimes. You get told thou shalt go on this day and thou shalt go. But no, I think it's funny. It is what it is. But yeah, I'll be reaching out. Yeah, we'll wrap this one up. It's been a good little episode here. You and I need to start targeting it, but I was gonna say let's try to target the 6th. I shouldn't have a whole lot going on that week that would prevent me from. I mean, I have a lot going on that week, but I shouldn't have anything that should prevent me. I will not be here in this office though. I'll be in a different location, undisclosed, unaware, just because I won't be here. But I'll have anything and everything I need to do the show. So, we'll target the 6th, guys, to come back. Have a lot more to talk about then. We should be hopefully getting some things in to talk about. I will tell you that this episode is brought to you by the wonderful 56 core Xeon that I'm doing it on. Gotta love a good old fashioned Xeon W 3495X. Which, by the way, I'll show this to you. You have to look on screen because I can't get you a way to look at it other ways. Here's the XTU that I have up right now. So, for those wondering, yes, I have this thing set up, and it is running 4 cores at 5.2 gigahertz. It is running all cores at hitting 4.2. I could do 4.3, but it's a little less stable. 36 cores go to 4.7, 24 to 4.8, 16 to 4.9, and 8 to 5.0. And it's stable. Very stable. When I run the benchmark, it decides it wants to spool up and pull 1.6 kilowatts, but you know, from the wall, I have a power limit too. I don't let it exceed 875 watts, which seems like a lot, but I mean, it is a lot too. So, but yeah, we'll close it out here. Thanks to everybody for joining.